Okay. The objective today and yesterday was that we're able to solve right triangles. This is essential. It's going to be a main component of your next test and your final exam. We'll be testing on this information next week. The idea we brought up yesterday was Sohcahtoa. This is something that you learn in geometry. Somebody from yesterday, what does Sohcahtoa stand for? Yes. So sine is opposite over a hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So what we're going to start with, to just kind of refresh, is we're going to label all the sides of these triangles. I always look at my angle. My angle is always made up of two sides, and those two sides will be the hypotenuse and the adjacent all of the time. So, which side is 8? Hypotenuse. Which side is x? The opposite. So you can see that in this situation, as I make the angle does not form the opposite side. Here's 64 degrees. I'll make that angle. What would we call 10? 10 is the opposite. What would we call x? The adjacent. I see the 41 degrees. I make the angle. What would be the x? Hypotenuse. What would be the 3.4? The adjacent. No, what'd you say? Opposite, okay? And that's all right. It's kind of twisted, right? But here's how we know it's not the opposite. The opposite will never have the angle drawn on it. When you draw the angle's always made up of the adjacent and the hypotenuse. It's the opposite side. Does that make sense? If it's opposite, then it won't be part of the angle because it's across from the angle. Okay, awesome. So that's the first skill, is can you identify those? The second skill is to be able to then take these pieces and decide whether we use sine, cosine, or tangent. So for the first one, do you use sine, cosine, or tangent? I use sine. Why? Because you're looking for the opposite, and you're given the hypotenuse. So O and H. So we use sine. Let's set it up. Sine of what? 37 degrees over 1 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite is x, hypotenuse is 8. Cross multiply, what do we get? X equals 8 times the sine of 37. This is why you have to have a calculator. Does anybody here know what the sine of 37 degrees is? Did you know that without your calculator? No. There are people who can tell you that in the world. They're what we call idiot savants. They are people who have a lower IQ, and they don't function often as higher as other people do, but their intelligence is focused in one very specific area of their brain, and you can give them 386,934.837 times 13.41, and they can rattle that back off to the answer within 30 seconds. I've seen videos on idiot savants where some are gifted musically, and somebody will sit down and play a piece on the piano that the savant has never heard before. They'll play a very complicated piece for 5 minutes, and the savant will sit back down, no music, and repeat it perfectly. Yeah, I'll show you a video on it. It is fun. So they cannot produce it on their own, but they can repeat it back. I've seen idiot savants where you could say, what were you doing at 3 o'clock on December 12th of 2002? And they could tell you exactly what they were doing that day. So anyway, so is anybody here an idiot savant? No. So you don't know what the sine of 37 is. And because you don't, you got to have your calculator. So we turn it on, and we make sure we're working in degrees or radians. Degrees. Excellent. So I go 8 sine of 37, and I get 4.81. Does it make sense that 4.81 is smaller than 8? Why? Yeah, it's across from a smaller angle. The 90-degree one has the larger side. Excellent. Okay. Which one do we use for here? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Why? Opposite and adjacent. Opposite and adjacent. So tangent 64 over 1 is equal to what? 10 over x. Notice how this is different. The x is in the denominator. So we'll have to take 2 steps as we solve this. As you cross multiply, you get x times the tangent of 64 is equal to 10. How do we solve for x? Divide by the tangent of 64. So x equals 10 over the tangent of 64. So I'm going to try that on my calculator. 10 divided by tangent of 64. And I get 4.88. Does it make sense that x is smaller than 10? Yeah, it does, because, you know, this is a smaller side because it's got a smaller angle up here. The angle up here is only 26 degrees. You see if you can do 3 on your own. Try 3 on your own. Go. Okay, let's see what you got. Did you use sine, cosine, or tangent? Used cosine. Hey, go away. You said that the cosine, the cosine of 41 degrees is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And so again, you have to cross multiply. 3.4 is equal to x times the cosine of 41. Divide both sides by the cosine of 41. And as I give this a shot, 3.4 divided by the cosine of 41, and we get 4.51 is equal to x. So 4.51. Does it make sense that that one's longer? Yep, because it's across from the 90-degree angle as the hypotenuse. It's going to be the longest one of all. Okay, that's an introduction. For those of you who missed yesterday, that's an introduction. That's a little bit of what we did yesterday. And for those of you who were here yesterday, hopefully that's a little bit of a reminder. Now I want you to flip to the worksheet that I gave you. So we're going to pick up there. I'm going to label all the parts of my triangle. I'm going to label them A, B, and C. Always make sure that C is the 90-degree angle. C is always the 90-degree angle. Which side is little a? Opposite from angle A. Which side is little c? The hypotenuse. And little b is going to be across from angle B. I'm going to label the parts of my triangle that I know. I know that angle A is 48 degrees. And I know that side A is 20. What you'll have to do for your test is to solve the triangle. Solve the triangle. And we are doing example one, I'm sorry, problem one right now, not example one. So I'm sorry for those of you who were gone yesterday. We're on the second one down. The first one, we did that yesterday together in class. So for your test, you have to list all 6 of these. Do you know angle A? What is it? Are you given B? Are you given C? C will always be 90 degrees. Are you given side A? You don't know the others. If you don't write these three down, you're not trying hard enough. Can we all agree with that statement? True or false? It's easy to find angle B. Yeah, why? Because all the angles of a triangle add up to 180. So let's just subtract those from 180. 180 minus 90 minus 48, and we get 42. If you don't come up with your third angle, you're not trying hard enough. We can all do that too, right? Now here's where it gets more complicated, right? Here's where it gets more complicated. Would you like, Jennifer, you get to decide today. Would you like to find side B or side C? You choose, I don't care. Okay, she wants to find side C, and she's given side A. What side is side A? The opposite, the adjacent, or the hypotenuse? Let's start easy. What side is side C? Hypotenuse. Now, is A across from the angle? So it's opposite. B is not across from the angle, so that's the adjacent one. So if I'm given the opposite and I want to find the hypotenuse, which of the three do I use? Sine, cosine, or tangent? Sohcahtoa. Opposite and hypotenuse means I will use sine. Sine of 48 degrees is equal to what over what? 20 over C. To cross multiply. 20 times 1 is 20. C times the sine of 48. I want to solve for C. I divide both sides by the sine of 48. 20 over the sine of 48 is equal to C. I get 26.91. Does it make sense that C is bigger than A? Yeah, because C is the largest angle. Now, I have a right triangle. How do I find my third side? The Pythagorean Theorem. A squared plus B squared is C squared. So I'll set it up. A squared, 20 squared, plus B squared is equal to 26.91 squared. So B squared is 26.91 squared minus 20 squared. Is that my answer? What do we have to do? Square root the answer. 18.00. Now the triangle is solved. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I want you to try number 3. I'm going to post the answer key. I'm going to come around and help. And then we're going to do a couple from the right-hand side. You must get this. This is a must, folks. So not necessarily today, but by Tuesday next week for sure, we got to say, yeah, I know how to do this. Otherwise, you got to come in and we got to go over it together. Okay, folks, I want to be clear here. Okay, I had somebody last year who was kind of frustrated with this, and I want you to understand that it's okay to not see entirely what's going on here. However, this is a piece that you really need to focus on and convince yourself of. If I know this is 10 degrees, can I figure out this angle? 80 degrees. Now, raise your hand if you chose to use the 10-degree angle. Nobody? 2, 3. Okay, raise your hand if you chose to use the 80-degree angle. You could choose to use either one. So I'll give you an example. We know that this side is 9 because it's across from angle A. And we know that this side is B. Well, watch how I set this up. If I want to use angle A, then I would set up the tangent of 80 is equal to opposite over adjacent. Right? Suppose you wanted to use B. You could say the tangent of 10 is equal to B over 9. It'll work out either way. Suppose you wanted to find C. You could say that the sine of 80 was equal to 9 over C. Suppose you want to use angle B, you could say that the cosine of 10 was equal to 9 over C. These are all options to set up. The difference is you have to choose which angle you want to use. And then you get to choose which side you want to solve. Here I chose to solve for side B. Here I chose to solve for side C. Here I chose angle 80. Here I chose angle 10. It all depends on how you choose to set it up. Does that make sense? Okay, let's try a different example. Okay. Let's move over here. Let's try this example number 2. This angle is always what? And we'll call it C. So C is 90 degrees. Good. So I'm going to call that side C because it's the hypotenuse. Now, it doesn't matter whether you choose one to be A or one to be B, but I'm going to try to make it fit with the drawing. If that's the longer side, I'll call it 12. So what angle should this be? Right? 12 is side B, so it should be across from the bigger angle. So this is the way I intended people to set it up when we drew the triangle. If you switched it around, it wouldn't matter, okay? But if you put A down here, then you would have to call the longer side 5. You get that, right? Okay. All right. So, do I know angle A? No. Do I know angle B? Do I know side A? Do I know side B? Do I know side C? So what's different about this problem compared to the other problem? We don't have the other angle. So I'm going to have to show you guys how to solve when you're looking for an angle. All the ones on the left-hand side, you were given one of the angles. Here you're not given one. Well, is it easy to find side C? Pythagorean Theorem, right? Let's do it. 5 squared plus 12 squared is equal to C squared. What's 5 squared? 12 squared. So 169 is equal to C squared, so C is equal to 13. Boom. No big deal, huh? Emily. What does Emily mean? Great one. Okay, great one. Would you like to find angle A or angle B? Emily wants to find angle B. Sounds good to me. Emily's going to find angle B. I now know all 3 sides. Would you like to use sine, cosine, or tangent? Doesn't matter to me. Sine. She's going to write sine of angle B is equal to. Okay, So if I want to use sine, do I use opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse? I use opposite. Well, what's opposite B? 12. Sine is opposite hypotenuse. What's hypotenuse? 13. Now here's a crazy thing about your calculator. This is amazing that it knows how to do this, but it does. Do we know angle B? If you know angle B, then you press sine. If you don't know angle B, you press second sine, or what we call sine inverse. This will tell you the angle. All we have to type in is 12 over 13. And it tells me the angle is 67.38 degrees. Now that I know angle B, is it easy to find angle A? Why? Right, so I go 180 minus 90 minus 67.38 degrees. And I get 2262. And now I check my answers. Biggest angle, biggest side. Smallest angle, smallest side. Now, suppose Emily changed her mind and she said, I don't want to use sine. I want to use tangent. Which two sides does tangent require? Opposite and adjacent. What's the opposite here? Well, what's the adjacent? Watch this. Second tan. 12 over 5. Boom. Your calculator knows. If you tried cosine, you would have 12 over 13, and your calculator, whoop, no, sorry, cosine of 5 over 13, and your calculator knows. Let's do number 2 together, and I'll let you guys work, continue to ask questions. Okay, you guys lead me through. I'm done talking. What do you want me to do? You tell me. Right angle. C is 90 degrees. Tell me more. Where? I don't know where to put that. Where do you want me to put it? Right here? Here. Okay. Oh, you want 6 on the bottom. I like that idea. I'll call this A. Pythagorean Theorem. Why? What are you trying to figure out? So you're automatically going to go figure out that side. Okay, so set it up. What do I got?
What angle do you want to find?
Amen, brother. Thank you, Jesse. I want to find angle B. I want to find angle B. I like to use cosine. Cosine what? B equals, ask me, what do I need to know? Ask me what cosine consists of. Cosine, it's Sohcahtoa. I remember that because I never learned it, but then you guys taught me it. Cosine, I guess I need the adjacent and hypotenuse. Tito, I don't know how to find the hypotenuse. How do I do that? It's always 10? Is it always the biggest side? Awesome. I like that. That's easy for me to remember. If I know it's always the biggest side, then that's really easy for me. Okay. I said I want to use cosine. I always get frustrated with the adjacent side. I never know which one's adjacent. Always the small side adjacent? Oh, it's not the opposite. So that one's the opposite. So 6 is the adjacent. Okay, so I got it. I go 10 over 6. Now tell me. Yeah, very good. Can't do that. Boom. And I check my answers. Angle A is the smallest. Side A is the smallest. Angle B is next. Or side B is next. Angle C is biggest. Side C is the biggest. I've checked my answers. They're verified. Everything on the right side, you'll have to use sine or cosine inverse. Everything on the right side, you'll use sine, cosine, or tangent. I'm ready to help you. Go be mathematicians. Answer keys up.